This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
Try to put a scenario together, a good enough system where you can get the work done effectively and not have people working nights and weekends. Worse work happens when you're working people to death because you don't have your shit together on how to get the work done in the first place.
You know, every once in a while, the universe throws you a bone and you get to invite a family member who worked for you, that's a friend, you've been to the wedding, and it feels like
You were just waiting for my title to get big enough to be like, okay, fine, we can actually get the vice president on air.
Yes, I lost the bet. Okay, I had more faith. I had more faith that you would have gotten to the title faster, but here we are. Just 11 years later.
Technically, I did for a small burger chain in Southern California for a hot minute. So, yeah.
Oh, and that was a good Burger Lounge was legit. Okay, let's call it what it was.
Slater's.
No, this is, oh yeah, my bad. That's the one. That was the one. Yes. 50-50. Are they still in business?
You know, I would love to find out what he's doing. I thought Scott was super talented, and then I just kind of lost track of him. But that would be a good catch up. I need to go see that guy.
Well, we digress, right? So look, this felt like a good holiday December episode, and for a few reasons. One, I'm truly, really proud of you and impressed by you. And it's not just the work, folks. It's the human. Look, let's call it what it was. My guest today came to my wedding, and I wasn't sure he was going to make it back to America, because he had so much fun.
Your friends are fun. Your friends are a good time.
It was a good crew, and you fit right. You fit right in. But Sterling Doak, I'm so proud of you, man. It's so great because we've got the scars with our fish tank days, and you were one of the guys. I mean, what a surprise! I'd love to take more credit for you, but to be real, you've always had the scrappy. You've always had the curiosity. You've had the figured out ability. So it's really cool to have you on the show, man. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great, and I'm honored to be here. Can I give you some flowers for a minute?
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
I'll give you some flowers. So I'm actually really stoked to be here. I'm equally as impressed with you, my friend, being in the trenches and then watching all of Courageous come to life is like, you couldn't be in a better spot for the world for you to be in, Ryan. Helping and coaching is like, I feel like that's most of what you were doing back in our time together, whether it was under the roof of an agency trying to get a bunch of work done and get revenue and clients and all that stuff. But really what was going on underneath all that was like a lot of coaching. So I wouldn't be here, honestly, if it wasn't for the time we spent together and you yelling attention to detail at me from across your office every 5 minutes. That works. That worked, man. Ryan, you don't know this. No one knows this, but Ryan pulled me out of obscurity from Ad Club in a small town called, what would you call it? East Tahoe, Reno, Nevada.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Gave a great presentation.
Greatest presentations ever.
I was like, wait a minute, this guy, he's good. He knows what he's talking about. I need to follow him. I need to get with this guy. And I was lucky enough for you to come and invite me to the circus.
And it was a circus. And he's actually talking about Ringling Brothers. And we actually worked on the circus.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure you were there in Florida with me, where I was called, did a third grader write this script?
That is true.
Which is, by the way, the best compliment you could get when the third grader is actually your audience.
That is exactly right. I was baffled. Also, I was very impressed that you didn't just point at me and go, it was him. He wrote this stuff. I've got the actual stuff over here.
No, man, that's not leadership. So let's first of all, thank you for that. I hear you. I appreciate that. I think everybody got better together. I think that's the truth. Even though, let's give a huge shout out first to Mike Fennessy, who was right there with us in the hopper just sort of taking the punches of startup life.
The amount of nights we had in the fish tank till 4 a.m. Like, I actually miss some of that stuff. I mean, I don't totally miss it because I'm 50 years old and I don't know if I could do it anymore. But like being up all night grinding on campaigns, that was fun.
It's a bit of an addiction. It's a bit of an addiction. But I think the lesson is if you're going to spend that much time with people, you better like them and you better be willing to go to war with them and roll up your sleeves with them and figure it out together, which is, I think, what we did. It's cool to watch the rock skip across the pond from East Tahoe to San Diego, where you met your wife. And you know, then you did LA for a hot sec, and not more than a hot sec. How long were you up in LA?
What was it? What, like 3 years, 3.5 years, something like that?
1,000 days. And now here
Yep.
you are as the VP of marketing at Gibson.
Yeah.
You get to live in Nashville, music center. You love music. It's like, just like, seems like the perfect match. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, it was interesting. At some point, no offense, Ryan, we were working together at the agency. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking, this isn't it. Like, music has always been my thing, and you know, we didn't really have any music clients, but I just had this urge, and I don't know whether I willed it or it's one of those things, spoke signals in the universe or whatever it was. But I just thought, man, if I'm going to spend some time actually really enjoying what I'm doing, I just hope that music can be involved in it. And it kind of just manifested itself. It took some time and some twists and turns and probably a lot of self-reflection and discipline. And to be honest with you, my wife was a huge driver in that. She was the one that kind of sat me down and said, look, you have talent, you have motivation. You're still sort of young, although she would argue at that point. She's now said I'm old as dirt. But she's like, you got to go chase your passion. You got to do what you got to do, you know? And it all kind of worked out the way I sort of had hoped. Not, nothing exactly as you hope for, but to be able to match my passion for music and my passion for marketing in the same building at the same desk every day is kind of magical. Really, really lucky. Thankful.
Do you feel, well, like, okay, I got to do the thing here, right? Which only because, I mean, we all know, anyone that knows you knows that Heidi is calling the shots.
Absolutely.
Like, we all are aware of what's going on here. It's time to move to Nashville because Heidi wants to move to Nashville. Like, let's call it what it was, right?
100%. 100%. But her instincts are always correct. Always. I've learned this the hard way. Don't question that woman's instincts. They are true. She knows the north from either directions.
She's on the map. She's on the map. So as you've gone through this journey, and again, you kind of remind me. I'm going to date myself since you've already done it. Like,
Okay.
I'm already.
Well, we're the same age. Let's start there.
You painted me as like a grandfather. Basically, I've always looked like a grandfather. Papa Ryan, Grandpa Ryan.
Wise
Grandpa Ryan.
beyond your years. Wise
Right?
beyond your years.
Right. So like, here's another Grandpa Ryan, right? Like, you're kind of Mike Tyson's Punch Out, right? You're like, you start with Glass Joe and like like you were in East Tahoe and you won that battle. Then you got to me. I was probably Bald Bull the first time, even though I've always been bald.
Well,
And then like Bald Bull the second time was probably LA. And like, do you feel like as you've gone into harder arenas, like, are you like, oh shit, like how am I going to learn? Like, now what? Like, am I going to be, do you feel like someone's going to out me? Or do you feel like, thank goodness I'm surrounded
are you getting
by
into
talent?
head of mentals? Hold on. I feel like we're veering into your new book now, which I haven't read, but it's on my desk and it's on my reading list this weekend. That's a really interesting question because I think a lot of it was, I don't know. It's at the same time, it's sort of like, I feel like I know what I'm talking about, what I'm doing. I feel like I have talent. Like, I feel like I can put the equation together pretty well if given enough time and resource. And then on the other hand, it's like, I don't like this situation. Is there something else? It's probably the best way to say it is I think I've done a lot of reflection and I've actually coached my team a lot on one point, which is just stay curious about the possibilities that are out there. Complacency that'll kill you quicker than anything. And my curiosity always led me to think like, oh, Ryan, what's this guy about? What's he doing? I like this stuff he's talking about. Where does he live? What is he working on? can I go work with you? Yes. Okay, I'm just going to ask you, right? And you said yes. So we did that. And then, we went on to the next journey. And then it was like, okay, what's this other thing though? Could I actually go work brand side versus agency side? I wonder if that would be interesting to do that kind of, to focus on a company. And then you do that. And then it's like, I don't know anything about this business. What about this other business? This is a passion I have. I wonder if I'd be good at that. I could bring some of this over there. And then it happens and you just figure it out. I think it's just I've just always been very curious about what the thing is behind the next thing, behind the next thing. And that's probably been the primary driver. It really never has been money. That's a thing that happens as a consequence, I guess, of doing well. My wife was a huge driver. She gave me belief and she's very successful. She's very driven. She's very smart. And I see her putting the pieces together and she's just as curious as I am. She wants to understand how to take a client's business to the next level, to what's behind the next win and the next win. I think it's just curiosity that really led me here, honestly. And there are times I wake up and I go, holy shit, how did I get here? What is going on? Like, do I know what I'm doing? And then you kind of settle down and you go, yeah, actually I do know what I'm doing, because as long as I remain curious about what the journey is, I think life is pretty good at unplugging the map for you if you're curious enough to follow it, versus staying in one place,
I love the takeaway from it, because so many people have stopped growing because they lost their curiosity.
Yeah.
Or they're just like, am I smart enough for this role?
Right.
And it's like, you just freeze yourself up and fear wins. And I think you're spot on. Like, just don't overthink it. Just stay curious. Also, the people that have made me most mad in the world were the ones that were too smart for their own good, and they use strategy to protect their jobs versus like using the strategy to actually solve a meaty problem, which takes admitting, you know what, I don't totally know this topic. I got to go play with it. I come back in 3 months and ask me, I'll have a better answer than the one I have now. Instead, they rather, I'm so smart. Look how smart I am. It sounds smart versus like doing the work.
Yeah.
So in this role that you're in now, you're VP of marketing over at Gibson. Is that the official title?
Yes, that is the official title.
Is this a pinch me moment? Like, you're working, like, who's the coolest like act you've met at this point?
I've had a lot of really insane experiences. I grew up loving ZZ Top. I got to meet Billy Gibbons almost like within the first couple months of working here. And I got to tell him a really cool story. He was in a 7-Eleven in Texas, and my mom's boyfriend at the time ran into him and he was buying beer. And on his credit card, it said Amex Billy Gibbons. Right? That's on the card after his name, right? And I go to Billy and I was like, Jack saw you and he said your credit card said and he was like, oh man, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, super cool. That's awesome. But then we hung out for like 2 hours and he's a great guy. He's like, two Texans hanging out with each other. Probably one of the most interesting experiences was when I was working at another guitar company previously, Fender, and the Edge was there. And we were going through the custom shop and the Edge really wanted a coffee. And he just looked at me with this look and he goes, I would like a coffee. And I was like, Edge, I will go get you a coffee. And I went and got the Edge a coffee. I came back and I gave the Edge his coffee. And he just gave me the most profound thank you for me going and getting him something. So the lessons I've learned with musicians is we're all musicians and we're all just people. And there's this other version that people think about musicians. They lionize them and they put them on this pedestal. And, any musician I've met, A-list, it doesn't matter. We're all just like regular people. And like, I have a blast interacting with musicians, especially when we're doing content, because that's when they're most in their element, You get a Rolling Stone reporter asking a musician about your life and how did you come up with the lyrics to this song and whatever. And they kind of just like, oh, okay. You get them in a room with a guitar and go, hey, let's talk about guitars. What do you like about playing guitar? What do you like about this guitar? What do you like? They are so in the zone. And you really get to see the other side of them, which is ding, ding, back to the previous point, curiosity. Musicians are the most curious people I've ever met in my entire life. They're always learning. They're never done. Nothing's ever solved. The next thing is the greatest next thing. And I draw a lot of inspiration from that because as you have to be creative in any capacity, musicians are the greatest co-author to any of the content that we've ever produced, because it really is, you don't need somebody telling a musician what to do creatively, right? So I've been really blessed to be able to work with musicians on creative aspects of this business that solve business problems, but I never imagined that working with a musician would be a creative endeavor in marketing. They're some of the greatest marketers on the face of the planet because of that curiosity and that creativity. And they just see things differently. They just see angles that you don't see, you can't see. None of us were traditionally brought up to see the angles that they see. So I learn a lot from them.
When you get them in that container, and look, if you're not in marketing and you're listening to this show, what are you doing? No, I'm kidding. If you're an HR or you're a CEO or you're an entrepreneur, you got to understand my perspective on many marketers is that like, hey, this is the script. Read the script. This is what's approved. Please read the script, right? And it's probably ego and it's fear, right? But to your point, when you get a musician to play a little bit and get literally play and be curious in their environment, how often have you seen in that space? It's like, well, scripts out the window, just jam. How often is that happening?
I mean, a lot. The one thing I'm usually trying to convey in those scenarios is, hey, whatever we do here today is it ends up being a love letter to other guitarists. Just remember that, right? If we get that part right, like if you can inspire someone to do something differently after they watch this thing, then we've done our job. And yeah, I may have certain points that I want you to make. And usually every musician is more than happy to listen to like things like, hey, why is this guitar cool? Why is it different? What does it do that maybe other guitars, don't do? And, different knobs and switches and stuff. And, you get into that stuff. They're very technical. It gets very technical. But when it comes down to like, hey, here's the call to action I'd like you to have today, and we're like, who to who, a what? And they're, so you just don't go there and you just say, look, if you can inspire somebody at the end of this thing, then we've done our job. And usually they will do the math on that and figure it out, because a lot of them are honestly music teachers as well. They're usually having to teach their agents and different people at the record label, like what matters and what doesn't in terms of music and their voice and what they're trying to convey to their audience. So they can be very responsive to nudges, but I never put a script in front of an artist and say, read this word for word, unless it's something like, hey, it's a shout out to Guitar Center or something like that, where they really need, something very specific. But no, you just let them run, and it's beautiful to watch. It's so freeing.
So it's funny. The amount of times I've said courage sets you free is not small. Pull the Ryan Berman string. Here we go again, right? But there is this relationship between fear and courage, and this is the Courageous Podcast. So if you took a step back and you just sort of like run the "This Is Your Life" episode for you, what is the biggest moment of fear that you felt since I've known you, which is now 20 plus years.
Gosh, yeah.
Right. And then also, what was the moment where you think it took the most courage for you?
Okay, so a couple places. Do I get a couple of these?
Yeah. Go for it. How about it?
So I
gold medal, silver medal. You want to do that?
One was truly putting together my resume to send to you. That was one.
I still remember this resume, by the way.
All-time resume. Totally goofy, really weird. But
gosh, by the way, there was no AI back then, so you couldn't have just thrown it into.
I knew nothing about Photoshop or anything, and whatever. So, but I thought I took a chance because I thought, you know what? I don't know what this guy's response is going to be. He could be like, "Yeah, thanks. You're great. I see 1,000 of you guys in all these towns that I go speak at or whatever." But it was worth it, and what I learned from that is it's okay to put yourself on the line sometimes to see if you can just even get a response, right? You'll never know if a signal's even going to come back unless you send something out there. And, that started sort of a journey of different challenges coming into play. And, I always like what you said about the difference between being, there's bravery, there's just unadulterated run into the fire. And then there's like courage, which is I'm going to be vulnerable here. And I think for me, that's always been the underlying current with courage is having enough vulnerability to know that you've got to be open and honest about what your chances are, but you'll never know unless you put yourself out there, and be okay with the consequences, because sometimes you're going to get what you ask for, and that creates a whole new series of issues. But, that has also led to being, very nervous about leading people, having a staff. This position I'm in now, I have the most staff I've ever had in my entire career. And I always tried to stay away from having a lot of people underneath me because I probably didn't trust myself enough to be a leader. And it scared me to death, honestly, to have all these people that were looking to me to say, lead us, where are we going? And it's really easy if you think about it fundamentally in terms of like the schematic view, which is like, well, process, here we go. We're going to put processes together. And how do you do things? And let's figure that part out and, optimize for process. Well, that provides some stability for sure, but it's not inspirational in and of itself. What becomes inspirational is your ability to actually be a human to the people that you lead and have them understand that we're all trying to figure this out together. I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. By the way, the board of directors don't have all the answers. No one does. We all have to figure it out together. But if you're never vulnerable enough to come down off of the mountain and say, hey, I screw up just like anybody else. I make mistakes just like anybody else. And I'm going to be damn sure to catch myself and call them out when somebody else doesn't. And I've always been an advocate for my team in particular to say, hey, can I cuss on this podcast?
Yeah, have at it.
When I fuck up, tell me. You don't have to tell me in front of a room, but call me. We have one-on-ones. Bring it up. Tell me where my transgressions are, because I will never learn to be a better leader unless I understand what those blind spots are. And
that's awareness to me, though. That is like, and I think your comment about musicians, that they're just people too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make it like the athletes, they're just people too. And guess what else? CEOs. Kenneth Feld is just a person too. Kenneth Feld is actually, people don't know that Kenneth Feld is the greatest showman on earth. He is actually the head Pumbaa on the juggling fire on a unicycle. But like that, the person that reports to you is just a person too.
Absolutely.
And you are just a person too.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest aha for me throughout this whole journey was that, like, the minute you realized it didn't matter what their title was, you're like, why am I trying to like over impress? They're just a little boy or girl trapped in this adult body too.
That's right. Yeah.
Navigating their own versions of fear. And so I love that advice. Because it's the Courageous Podcast, I'm going to ask you a very courageous question now.
Okay.
Are you ready? What is the worst advice I ever gave you?
The worst advice you ever gave me? Oh, man. I don't know. That's really hard because you always gave me very, very good advice. I wasn't listening to you a lot of the times, but okay. The worst advice you ever gave me was trying to talk the client into getting all of the invoicing and the upfront and front load all of the billing. That one, for one, I was not equipped at that point to do it. So that's your fault. You didn't. There was more coaching needed before I went and did
Yeah, how are you going to learn if you don't?
I know. Just throw me off into the
throw you in the
deep end.
fire.
That one, I wish we could take that one back a little bit, but maybe the other one was.
Me too.
Maybe the other one was go back into the edit bay one more time.
Yeah.
Versus like, you know what? At a certain point, it's just good enough. Like you just got to walk.
I can live with these.
You got to walk away.
I can live with both of those. They're both probably very true. That I trusted you immensely on the on the billing, and yet I didn't trust you enough on the edit.
That tells me a lot
Right.
right there.
Right, but again, most of my creative inadequacies in my own brain, they're my own fears from the past,
For sure.
right? So
Yeah.
version 27 of an
Yeah.
edit,
Yeah.
like it has to be perfect, and I'm making that about me.
Yeah.
So it's great advice. I can live with those. I actually didn't know what the heck you were going to say, so
No,
I'll take those too. I'll take those too for sure. What about Fennessy? What would Fennessy say? And again, just folks, Mike Fennessy was the creative director he got stuck doing everything design wise, concept wise.
That's a tough one. I hate speaking for Mike. Probably wouldn't be too far off from like, these are just one too many rounds of revisions. Stop comping. We don't need to comp this so much. It does. Oh, this is a big one. This is you, right? Ryan used to have us comp things that look like finished ads. Like,
Oh, yes.
we still had stuff to go shoot. We had production to do, but the damn comps were like, comp it until it looks like it would go
Beautiful.
in a magazine, and that would drive Mike crazy.
Yeah, sorry.
Pointed earlier, he's a glutton for punishment sometimes, so he would just do it anyway. And man,
Mike, I'm sorry. I want to apologize now. My bad. All right. So let's talk about the current gig and what does fear look like in this role that you can share at least.
yeah. Okay, so stuff I've come across that's kind of new and interesting, primarily coming from strategy background, management. The good news is I spent so much time with you and Mike that I think I honed a lot of creative muscle that most people don't get on the management and strategy side, meaning that you were always really big on like, look, there has to be a strategy. There has to be an underlying strategy here that needs to be converted into creative concepts, and they have to be glued to each other. They can't be disconnected, meaning that if you're a strategist and you don't understand how creative's done, you're never going to be able to put the two and two together. You're not going to be able to write a brief that's meaningful for a creative to actually go and execute against. And I think you are always really big on like, just make sure that those two worlds are seamless, basically. You know, in this and previous positions, but especially here, I've had to really bridge that gap because I've been in charge of creative and strategy simultaneously, right? And so it's left brain, right brain constantly, like, let me talk with the managers on how to put a brief together so that we can solve business problems, and then immediately have to go to the other team that I'm responsible for and say, okay, now you need to translate this into concepts. And then, layer on top a bunch of departments that I had never, functions I hadn't really managed directly. Social media, email marketing, performance marketing, retail marketing, so all of these divisions that I'm responsible for. And as you and I know, what makes the whole world go round is having a good set of briefs to rely on to actually get the work done, right? And that scared the shit out of me at first, having that much sort of responsibility to have to navigate all of these different people and professions and different points of view and try to figure out. I think what probably scared me the most was trying to establish some sort of common language amongst us. And that is challenging. It's always challenging. And it's challenging for any leader to try to get their teams glued together around an idea, around something that everybody can be inspired by, because there's always going to be factions and divisions and, pockets and silos. And I've tried to work really hard to take a human tact with people and build trust first and foremost, not command respect, but get the trust first so that the respect happens to, hey, I've got everybody's best interest in mind here. And by the way, I don't know everyone, so we're going to have to work through some of this stuff with each other. And that is deeply frightening, honestly, because you've got people's livelihoods that are tied up in that, and people's futures and their future plans and their careers. And I think the other thing that, I don't know if this one scared me a little bit, but it was definitely a motivator, is watching people burn out and having a realization that as soon as you become a family man and you've got a wife and you've got a kid at home and you want to protect that time just as much as anybody else, that you've got to grant the same respect to the people around you. and not work these people to death. Try to put a scenario together, a good enough system where you can get the work done effectively and not have people working nights and weekends. And, that to me is like deeply disruptive. Worse work happens when you're working people to death because you don't have your shit together on how to get the work done in the first place,
This whole timeline is pretty wild. Like the universe got the timeline right, because like when you're a know nothing kid, and when I'm in my 20s and I've got all the time in the world and I've had no money anyway, and right, like yeah, I can devote 18 hours on that. Sure, I'll give a weekend to that, right? Like, and you have no concept. It's like the Seinfeld joke, like married people and single people don't want to be friends, don't need to be friends. They're two separate universes. Like single people have no idea what it's like, and married people are like, God, I don't want to go back to that. And it's true. How many people on your team now are single?
Oh, single, not married.
Yeah.
Actually, there's very few now that I think about it. Gosh, I could probably count maybe 2 or 3. Everybody's in a stable relationship or married. A lot of people have kids, and my staff it ranges, but there's really nobody's kind of like young 20s just out of college right now. I have had some folks come in and they have a whole different attitude, and they're actually kind of shocked because they're used to like the grinder, and they're like, I'll be available all weekend if we need to get this done. And it's like, no. It's Friday at 3:00 and we're going to get this shit done by like 5:30. And we're just going to sit in this room until it gets done, and it's going to get done. So let's just focus and get it done. I think part of the problem with being young is you think, well, I can do it whenever. Like I can fiddle fuck around with this idea for the next 5 hours and not get it anywhere, and then work through the night. And then, is it really getting solved any better? Or is it better to just put a block on it and say, no, it's got to get done in this time. So let's do everything we can to focus and get it done in this time. We got 8 hours a day, 5 days a week to solve all of these problems. Start there. And yeah, sometimes they're going to bleed. Sometimes it's going to go deeper.
Let's talk about something that most people don't know about you.
All right.
Which is that your mama, who I know very well, it's her fault, obviously, that you're in this business.
It is.
It is. Hi, Mama Doak. I know it's not even Doak, but to me, you're Mama Doak, right? So Todd, give me like 1 minute on your mom and how she introduced this business to you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, what I just said, that's part of her discipline. She taught me that when you've got an allotment and you've got to get something done in that allotment, you get it done as best as you possibly can with what you have, right? There's no asking for more. There's no more time. There's no more money. No one's coming to rescue you. This is it. Get it done. So it was discipline. It was discipline in the art of getting things done within a fairly constrained environment. And I learned a lot from her in having to be disciplined with time and resources. She taught me be firm but fair. That one I think for all of us is hard. So confrontation's hard, And my mom has no trouble with confrontation. But she taught me the right way to do it, a respectful way to do it. And I think most importantly, she's not a person to be taken advantage of. And she got that from my grandmother. My grandmother actually started the agency that my mother kept going with. And then I worked for, third generation, right?
And then you were like, I got to get out of here. She was probably like, you got to get out of here. Like, go. She probably, well, it's funny that you use the word discipline because I would not, I'm just calling it like I see it. That's not the word I would use to describe you when I ran into you. What I ran into was somebody who deeply respected Mama Bear, somebody who was going to listen to mom. I don't think that was ever an issue, but also somebody who was like I was like, oh, I can do something. I can do something with this guy. Like, I feel like he's creative. He zags. Everything we talk about, he's definitely not your traditional like marketer, just creator. I didn't see you as that. And you're right. I like that you put it on the line, and I'm like, yeah, we can do something with this. Like, if you're going to do that, with us, imagine what you do for our clients. Effort. There was effort, and it was thoughtful effort. It wasn't like careless, reckless effort. I've seen that too. That wasn't it. That wasn't this. When you think about your boy, so, and again, I don't know if Heidi wants me to mention the boy by name or not.
Oh, hold on. Right. I have to rebut your point real quick. What you're trying to say is I wasn't as disciplined as I would eventually become. Because you know what? I think it takes time sometimes for that stuff to actually like show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It takes repetition in situations for you to actually recognize where the discipline is actually the most effective, you know, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life. Yeah, I'll be the first to admit, like, I'm not an unfun person. I like to have a good time. I like unpredictability, but it's the delicate balance of understanding when to turn it on and when to turn it off, right?
Yeah, and I think well stated. And again, I'm kind of back to that Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Like as you've gone from ring to ring,
Sure,
and the stakes have gotten higher, it forces you to be a little bit more disciplined in each ring, and you get your skills out. And you're like, let's test this. Oh, I just got punched in the face. Okay, maybe I should have worn my gloves today. You know, yes, wear your gloves to the ring.
I still get hit in the face very often. Yes, all the learning experiences, though.
We all do. Okay, Heidi might, make me take this part out. Let's talk about Levi for 1 minute. So like you got a boy, your boy is how old?
He's going to be 5 next month.
Amazing. Okay. All right. Let's say one of the things I also love about you, and I think you get this, I know you get it from Heidi, but you also get it from your mom, is that the lessons matter. The lessons, we're always looking for the lessons. We're always looking for the opportunity. We'll stack chips. We'll stack them and we'll wait, and then we'll play our lessons, right? So let's say we fast forward to a decade from now. I don't mean to take time away, but let's say the boy is 15, and you've got 2 lessons for him, the 2 biggies, right? He still listens to you somehow, some way. Maybe Heidi told him to listen to you, but like you got him sitting down with him. What's the advice? What's the advice moving forward?
Well, this is a great segue from what we just talked about. I think if I remember what I was like when I was 15, I lacked a lot of that discipline that we've been talking about I think understanding how to manage your urges, which is going to be hard for any 15-year-old, no matter what. But, to understand that you need a lot of self-respect, and you need to respect the people around you. And that discipline matters when you're that age, because if otherwise your urges will end up being uncaged animals, right? And you can become violent and predatory very easily if you don't understand how to harness those dogs, if you will, right? And I think my other piece of advice would be, you've got to have a lot of respect for the people around you, especially the women in your life, because generally that's where you're going to get your greatest lessons. And if you don't have respect for the women in your life, and you don't have the respect for the women around you, you're going to end up going down a very dark path eventually. And I'm very thankful that I grew up around a lot of really strong women, because they gave me a lot of really good lessons early on. And probably thirdly, like, know how to fix a tire, man. Like the basic stuff. Like, this one is big for me and him right now, is I make him fix stuff. I don't just do it for him. If there's something that breaks, I teach him how to fix it. You got to fix this. And if he can't figure it out, I will help him. And I have found that Legos, frankly, are a really interesting way to teach lessons about that, because you open up a bag of a bunch of loose parts and there's instructions, and we're going to do it together. But I've been incredibly impressed with his ability to translate doing Lego stuff into other parts of his life. It's really interesting. Now he takes more initiative to just try to figure something out versus defaulting to do this for me, right?
By the way, my way of fixing the tire, I can fix it. I just call it AAA. Like, is that not what you mean? You have a different definition?
No, I mean, we're gonna these are things. There are certain things where I'm like,
The tire is fixed,
you're
Sterling.
going
The
to be
tire
in
is
dangerous
fixed.
situations. You need to know how to do this stuff,
I'm piecing a few things together though, for real. And I think you're a great dad. And again, this is folks that are listening. My hope is today comes off as just a conversation between two old friends, because that's how I feel about this. I know you feel similar, but I think we can go to places that others probably can't because we have a relationship. And I'm not sure if I kind of pieced it together, but hearing you talk about the lessons, it's funny. My first urge, you talked about urges and being careful with urges. Yes, you should. I think about my mom. I think about my wife. Like there, I definitely have. I think about my aunt Lori.
Yeah.
But I had a good enough relationship with my dad. Like my relationship with my dad, my relationship with my dad as I got older got stronger. I mean, to be fair, growing up, it wasn't around a lot, not because he didn't care. It's because he was at the office. I wonder where I got work ethic from and why I'm a
Right.
workaholic, right?
Yeah.
But what is your relationship with your dad? Like, how does that play here?
Yeah, I'm a child of divorce, grew up with my mom. And, yeah, and this, my parents were messed up. They were a product of the, 60s and 70s, and not a lot of discipline in some of that generation, and caused a pretty nasty divorce. And my parents split, and I would see my dad on the summers. And, when I was younger, it was a lot of it was him and my uncle taking me to work. Like I would go work with my uncle on landscaping jobs, and I would go work with my dad who was doing solar, honestly, solar in the 80s. Think about that. They had a solar company, right? Like way ahead of the curve. But a lot of it was, it was manual, it was hands-on, it was work. The Doak men are predicated on work. That's the ethos. If there was like the Doak family crest, there would be a hammer in the middle of it, right? So it's always been a little bit, probably the best way to put it is like kind of a blue collar father and son relationship, and I think, his dad wasn't terribly affectionate to him. And, so these things, they move on, right? You learn what you learn from your parents and how to interact. And I've tried to make a really conscious decision to one, stay connected with him in the best way that we possibly can, right? You're never going to get any more out of a relationship than you have. And sometimes you just have to be like, this is the relationship. So let's make the best out of this relationship that we have, and not be bummed out because it's not something different, right? Just be realistic and be the most productive you can. I think probably one of the most fun times I had with him recently is he had open heart surgery, and he needed me to come and like figure out all of his pills. And, I can't move. You got to get the pills taken care of and write all this stuff down. At what time, and it was like very, like this thing. But for the both of us, it was like this great interaction of like, I gotta get you up, Dad. You gotta move around every half an hour. You need to go up by a little care. And then we would watch Westerns, and, and like, we love documentaries where we're watching like World War II documentaries. And did you know that, you know what I mean? That stuff. So he and I share a love of like trivia, like us two playing trivia games is like the greatest time ever. And he's a jokester, so we tell a lot of really bad, jokes that I'm not going to describe here.
Nothing says fun like open heart surgery, Sterling. I mean, and let's flip it, because where I was kind of going wasn't trying to put you on the spot. It was more, I see, when you come to town and I get to see Levi and I get to see you dadding, you are such a good dad and you're so intentional about it. And I have to imagine this is all connected.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at some point, if you're a child of divorce and you don't have that nucleus, that thing, and then you see everybody else sort of having it, and then all of a sudden you've got to be responsible for it, right? I've got this little being that I've got to be a leader to, frankly, right? Look, there are no lessons in the office that are well honed, right? It's everywhere, right? You can't be a leader at the office and not be a leader at the house, and vice versa. So I've had to be all the same things. I've had to be vulnerable around him and tell him that I don't know everything, and admit when I'm wrong, and talk him through things. I just want to make sure he understands. It's not, it's not the old just do what I said because I said it, unless it was this morning when he was taking too much time to put his shoes on. I'm like, we got to go. Okay. Let's move along for it. I want him to have an understanding that I'm here. I'm always here and I'm always the resource for him, and that we're going to learn his life together. That is the most beautiful thing about having a kid in my eye, is I get to live his life with him. I almost get to start from scratch again and go, oh, I've walked these paths before a little bit. Let's see let's see if it's the same one, and his life's going to be different. The choices he makes are going to be different than the ones that I made. His attitude's different. He's a way better attitude than I did, but I really cherish getting that opportunity to go walk that path with him and do it hand in hand, because it was a hand I didn't have there for a lot of my life, and I want him to make sure he feels it.
All right, here's how we're going to end this show. I mean, first of all, we're almost 50 in. If
God,
people
I was going
are,
to get you to cry right there. I was probably pretty close. No?
that was the onions in the salad I just had, I think. But no, man, you're a success story every which way, man. It's awesome the way you've designed your life and that you've gone for it and you've stayed curious and you haven't overthought and you've gone exactly where you should be. And we miss you. And actually, that's a good lead into how we'll end. We're 50 minutes in. If people are listening, they're clearly still here and engaged in this. They probably know us. They're like, oh, I love where we went. So let's go rapid fire. Okay, we're gonna go rapid fire. It's 5 questions rapid fire. Don't overthink it. Quick answers. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Question number 1: breakfast taco or dinner taco?
Breakfast taco.
Okay, clearly kid from Texas. I mean, that's like the dead giveaway. 2, this holiday season, there's the boots. If you're watching video, you just pulled up the boots. 2, happy holidays. What's, again, living through the lens of your boy, what must be done this holiday season?
Oh, Star Wars figurines all day. All the stuff I had when I was a kid. Love Star Wars right now. We're doing Star Wars. That's the theme of the holidays.
Great place to be. 3, where is holiday at home in Nashville?
Yeah, we're gonna do it right here, Franklin, Tennessee. We'll do it right here.
4, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from Levi?
Patience. Unequivocally, it is to take a deep breath and have patience with that little man. 1, because I recently realized he processes information a little bit slower than I do, so you have to have patience. But he has taught me to really think before I speak and think before I act. And that's been huge for me. Huge.
That's not a small thought that I had to think about.
No. But
5. Number 5, we got to move on. This is rapid fire. Sorry. No more thinking about thinking.
No more thinking. Sorry. I'm sorry.
What do you miss most about San Diego?
Pizza port, probably.
Fair answer.
No, the answer is you. The answer is hanging out with you. We used to have so much fun. I honestly, that part I miss. Whether it was at work.
I think I would have stayed with the pizza port answer, frankly. We had a good crew, man. We still do, just because we're all spread out. Last question. What's the one thing you have to run at in 26?
We've got a great brand here. It is servicing 130 years of history and legacy. And I think the courage part about this job is understanding that I and the rest of my team and all of us here have an immense responsibility to leave this place better than we found it. Economically, this is not a great place for a lot of businesses to be in, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. And, especially if you're in the guitar business, this is not a commodity. This is Ryan, you used to say you have to make people make an irrational decision. Remember when we, conversations? That's my job. Yep. So, a lot of it is making a really good case for why music matters and why these instruments matter and why this brand matters, and not to get stuck in the thinking of, hard economic times, and you got to be really courageous to move forward and say, no, this brand has a place and a plan in everybody's lives. And our job is to try to bring that to them. And whether that's, it generally boils down to just really good storytelling. We've got to tell better stories, and that takes courage in and of itself to get outside yourself. And to our point earlier, sometimes you have to release some of that and say, you know what? Maybe the musicians have a better story to tell. Maybe I should listen to them. Maybe we should, invoke a little bit more of that. So probably a little less reliance on the spreadsheet and the dashboard sometimes, and a little more reliance on connecting with people and what they really want from us,
Man, you sure sound like you're fighting Mike Tyson right now. I mean, you're at least the Sandman. You're up there. Keep fighting a good fight, brother. We miss you back here. Come visit. We'll hit Pizza Port if that's what you want to do.
100%.
And send my best to your way better half. It's like better halves. I know that the math doesn't work. Mama Bear too, right? Send the best to Mama. And thank you for being so real on the show. And I know I'll see you soon, bro.
I love you, pal. Looking forward to reading the book.
Thanks, man. Be good. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.